In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
Hello, viewers. We're so happy that you've joined us for this program tonight, where we're going to be conversing about making the most of every season of your life. So this is part 2. In our part 1, we talked about the practical ideas and biblical principles that a woman can use to make the most of the spring and the summer of her life. And so there were so many great ideas shared that we ran out of time. So this is our part 2 now. And so we're going to begin to talk about what can wise women do in their 50s and on up in the fall and the winter of their lives to make the most of that to the glory of God and to their own personal satisfaction and fulfillment. So those two things often go hand in hand. And so let's begin again, ladies, with this great conversation. So Colleen, what would you say that some things that wise women can do in their 50s and 60s to ensure a more blessed future?
Well, this won't be what you've usually heard,
Okay.
but I have a point, and I think it's an important point.
Good.
Look at aging in America and decide if that's what is best for the kingdom of Christ and the work he's given us, and whether you want to age that way yourself. Think of your parents or aunts, uncles, grandparents, and think about maybe they aged well and they were playing tennis until the day they died at 92. But that's not what I've seen for the most part. So we have to keep ourselves strong, and it becomes your job, because I realize this, as I'm older, it doesn't just all stay together on autopilot. I have to work. I'm in manual mode now for things. So get your health in tip-top shape. Make it your job. So for most people, men and women, both, muscle, bone, and other parts of the body and brain go into decline, and that slowly robs us of our mobility and other faculties that help us carry out our work of spreading the gospel, uplifting other Christians, and showing hospitality. Mm-hmm. If you can't get around and you can't remember things and you hurt, you're going to shrink from all those duties that you have. In a nutshell, daily vigorous exercise is key to holding off that physical and mental decline. Mm-hmm. People don't want to hear that. And if they're 65 and they've never run, they don't like to run, they've never made themselves do that, they don't want to hear that. But this is really pretty old science. I've got a book that was written, that was published in 2005. Yes. And all of this stuff is in there way back then. That's 20 years mm-hmm. ago. So this is not some new thing I thought up. And so it will be easy to research this and find out for yourself, and you will see. Also, diet and interacting with others also play a major part. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, I'm not sick shaming. There are people that are sick. We want to take care of them. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. But if you still feel good, or even if you're kind of going into decline, I think you can scratch that back mm-hmm. by vigorous exercise first, and then, cleaning up your diet. And I'm serious, like I'm cleaning it up, really do it. And then having interaction with other people.
Yes, our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and God has work for us. He has work planned for us. And so, yes, take care of your temple in every way you can. It's a stewardship, isn't it? It's a stewardship of, like, for example, Colleen, can you share with us some things that have made the most difference for you in this regard. How much time a day do you think do you dedicate to that and such?
I dedicate about an hour and a half. Now, I didn't start there, so don't let that scare you. I don't want you to think that I'm, that it's easy to go an hour and a half, like first thing in the morning. But I decided I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna make it matter. So I have a basketball workout that I do 5 days a week, and so it's running and then moving fast, and I wear heart monitor to make sure I'm not dogging it. I can look on my little watch and I can tell if Colleen's cheating. So those are a couple of things. And I've your legs get weak, your knees start to hurt, or your shoulders. And basketball to me is great because I used to play basketball. So, but it works out everything. You're moving, you're twisting, you're turning, you're chasing the ball. It's good. But find something that you love, something that you will do, but it needs to be more vigorous. I know a lot of people walk, and that might be okay if you're going up like steep hills. That does help. But you really need to be sweating every day, and just read someone else's book. I'm no expert, but read books on this, and they'll tell you need to really be working those muscles, because for every day, if you're over like 55, you're losing, a lot of muscle and possibly bone.
Yes, bone mass, which I understand is strengthened through weight training, like weight bearing.
I do that too. Yes. I don't do enough of that, but I do. I lift weights as well.
Yeah, very good, very good. Robin, what do wise women of God do in their 50s and 60s to ensure a more blessed future?
They listen to other women like Colleen, who just.
Yes.
I mean, I could not agree with you more. That's not what I had down, but I could not agree with you more. And, the responsibility we have to take care of ourselves. And if we don't, we will become a burden to our children.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, I've always prayed that, ask God to help my husband and I continue. I mean, even 25, 30 years ago, I was praying this. Please let us age well, doing what we need to do for our part, both mentally and physically, so that we can continue to serve your kingdom. Yes. That's the bottom line. It's about serving in the kingdom. And yes. And yes. I mean, 1,000 stars on that comment you made, Colleen, because there's just so many people that don't do that. And if you don't, I tell people, hey, don't wait until you're 50 to start, but at the younger ones. But if you did wait, it's never too late. It's never too late. And I have my my daughter's a physical therapist, and so she goes to the gym with me once a week. I do other things besides going to the gym, but she goes to the gym with me once a week, and she helps me with certain routines that are good for my particular issues, like, strengthen my knee or whatever it is. And so yes, yay. I'm so glad you said that. It's so important. But what I put down, and I also loved how you said, Colleen, how do you want to age?
Yeah.
That is kind of, on our first program, we talked about the youth, and we talked about, think about who you want to become.
Right.
That applies to us too. How do I want to age, and what do I need to do now to be that person? This isn't about living to 100. This is about, anyway. So I was thinking in terms of, what wise women do in their 50s and 60s is we stay the course. We stay the course. However, that course might look a little different. It might start to look a little different than it did in your 30s and 40s. And by that, I mean the way you were serving in your 30s and 40s, or the things that you were putting your hands to in the kingdom, those might begin to be shifting a little bit. I said in an earlier program that I was a runner. I thoroughly loved it. And then a couple of knee surgeries and stuff like that. And I don't run anymore. I walk very vigorously. My husband will say, I'm not going walking with you. I don't do this speed walking business. So I bought a dog and he speed walked with me.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
good. Yeah, that's good. That is good.
But it's just how I've learned that how I served earlier, or the things that I did earlier in life, look a little different now. And I'm just, going to God and saying, how can I use my gifts and talents now? Like, I love teaching kids. I was a public school teacher. Of course, I taught the hormonal ones, the high school kids. But but
that's why the heart attack.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't think I have the energy required right now to teach the 5 and 6 year olds. In other words, am I the best person to be doing it? So I kind of had to back out of that and realize maybe I do something else. Maybe I'm the person that says, hey, can I decorate your room for you? Can I, it shifts. How you serve and how you run the course begins to shift in your 50s and 60s. And it creeps up slowly, but you can still be a very, very, very important part of the kingdom. And then also, this is a time period. If you're married, your kids are likely grown and you're becoming empty nest person. This is a great time for you to invest your energy into becoming that Titus 2 older woman, and walking alongside someone who is younger and investing your time and your energy and the wisdom that God has given you in those other people. So that's kind of what I thought of.
And there's so many young women out there who have never had that kind of leadership in their life ever, that are showing up in our church houses and just like looking for that. They're hungry for that mentorship and everything that we read about there in Titus 2. I was thinking about how fall is the time when a woman hopes to harvest all she's invested, right? And the deepest desire of a woman, I think, with decades of service to God under her belt, is the dream of that Proverbs 31, the worthy woman of Proverbs in verse 31. And that is, quote, give her the product of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates, unquote. So by the 4th and 5th decades of life, a woman has sharpened the skills that she has long ago discovered. And those skills and experiences are best used in teaching what is good to younger women, as you're saying, Robbie. So the wise older woman is often approached for advice, and perhaps that's why honoring the privacy and the reputations of others is often among the instructions that are given to the older women in Titus 2, not gossiping and such. So also mentioned in that reference is reverence. And I think earlier in life, a lot of what we said and did may have sprung from a desire to be accepted. But by this time of life, our confidence is, I think, often at its peak. And frankly, this may predispose us to say or do just about anything, anytime, without much embarrassment. So perhaps this is why older women here are reminded to be reverent, be reverent. Even when you've got the skills to just say or do something that would be hysterical, let's opt for being reverent. Lastly, in Titus 2, older women are told to avoid addiction to wine, right? So the autumn of life may also be a time of disappointment when a Christian woman may begin to compare her actual harvest so far with her earlier expectations. So women must learn to cast all their cares and disappointments upon her Heavenly Father and not look to wine or even other addictive, compulsive behaviors that soothe the pain, whether that's spending or just, it could be just addicted to the television. I don't know. But she must trust God that her toil is never in vain in the Lord. Like, despite whatever your harvest looks like, if you put everything you had into your toil for the Lord, just trust him. He says your toil is not in vain in the Lord, that you'll be rewarded. You know, that your Revelation 14:13 talks about that our deeds will follow us. Sometimes we're going to see that fruit, other times we won't, but just knowing that you did the right thing with everything that you had, that there's got to be some comfort in that. So what can a woman in her 40s, I mean, in her 50s and 60s do through taking on that important work, such things as watching her children fly the nest, right? And perhaps caring for her aging parents. Like, there's so much going on at this stage.
It is.
Especially if you had your kids later in life. Like, they're not flying the nest until you're well into your 50s, and then your parents are starting to need you. So that can overlap. To me, taking joy in the time and space to experience the thrill of discovery in your more expanded, less interrupted daily communion with God, that, I mean, it feels so fresh, like little buds of faith springing up on a rod. Like, you know, Aaron's rod had the little buds on it. That's what your faith can feel like. So if you have these people that are overlapping that need you, I mean, probably my best adrenaline every day comes from these light bulb moments that are happening during my Bible study and just the closeness I feel with God. I love it. I love praying aloud now. What I'll do, ladies, in my old age here to really commune with God is I will listen to audio of a Psalms or even the Song of Solomon, because to me that whole thing relates to God. And I'll put it on a slow play so that in between I can respond back to him. He says something and in prayer, I respond to that in praise or in intercession or in confession or whatever. I love that communion. So that's what you can do, you know, to in between taking care of your parents and maybe kids that are still, you haven't flown the nest yet, you know, is just really get into that. Any comments?
Yeah, I think people, women of this age, are often called into the caregiving category.
Yes.
And I think was it Cherry that's been on this show before?
Armstrong.
And her husband was so sick for so long, and she was. Is that who I'm thinking?
I'm not certain, but maybe.
Okay. Anyway, her husband was sick she wrote a book about caregiving, a little pamphlet book type thing. And I think we are often unprepared when we are called into the role of being a caregiver for our parents. At this age, at the 50s and 60s, is when the parent-child dynamic shifts.
Oh, that's true.
And the child becomes the parent of the parent. And that's very, very challenging. I've lived that. That's a very, very challenging time.
Yes.
And there has to be a lot of self-care. Yes. And yes, it involves new discovery, being in the Word, but it also is a time of, if you haven't been someone that has been prone to ask for help, guilty as charged here, you really need to reach out and ask for help, because that's a very, very challenging time, especially if you're dealing with someone who has a debilitating illness or, you know, a terminal illness, or, and this is also a time where you were on this trajectory, the kids are now gone, and now all of a sudden the life path that you had envisioned is not what's before you. It's something different. And you're having to put your hand, and it might be you're the one that's caring for some of the elderly in your congregation. You're the one that's going and visiting them. I don't know. But oftentimes in this age, there is a little bit of, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, a little bit of where your plans and dreams don't match up with reality.
Okay.
Not necessarily because of what choices you've made, but because of the unexpectedness of life.
Right.
It's easy to go into disappointment and woe is me and all that. And that age is a time where we've really got to begin fighting off Satan again. He
Yeah.
starts to get us then. Anyway, just some thoughts there.
Agreed. Colleen, any thoughts?
Are we talking about the winter of life now?
No.
Still in the 50s and 60s. I think that's, were you alluding to things like depression? Robin?
Well, when you're a caregiver, you're giving all of your time and energy to this other person who needs you.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily thinking of depression, but I know that there are some women, if your identity was completely in, I'm a mom, and now you're no longer actively parenting, that's sometimes hard to deal with. So there may be some depression that sets in about that. I don't know. I was kind of happy when they left. I mean, not happy, but just like
it was complete. The process was complete.
Yes.
Yeah. I was also fulfilled. Yeah.
That course is like, go fly, you know. And then
Yes, and there's also sometimes, Robin, think about community resources, because you have the resource, like, what can I use to get a break here? And maybe there's a community resources at play. Maybe the getting in touch with the healthcare workers, what can we do here? Because you're going to need some time off from that.
Well, I just know that there's a lot of women in their 50s and 60s. Your parents are now in their 70s and 80s.
Right.
So this is kind of the time period where things or you might have to help them financially or help them whatever. But that's you're now pulled into a different area. And for some who thought, I'm going to retire and travel the world and blah, 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 which is wonderful.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that idea is kind of squashed because now you're giving your time and energy to others. And it doesn't happen to everybody.
Right.
But, I always say to people, and there's no right or wrong about this, but if Jesus dying on the cross looked out at John and said, behold your mother.
Right.
That tells me we need to take the care of our elderly parents seriously, whatever that looks like. I am not one to say, you got to do it this way. No. All our situations are different.
Right.
But that's not something we really think about and plan about. We all think about having our kids and raising our kids and then having the grandkids and then life is great. And all of a sudden we have some hard things that come into our life and that happens in the 50s and 60s.
Well, and to combine your thought with one of Colleen's thoughts, one thing, so it is good to think self-author, think ahead of like, what, if I'm in this situation, what's my plan? And maybe what your plan is to have that 90 minutes of a good hard sweat somewhere, at a gym or a run or a swim or whatever your thing is, like to have that kind of rhythm in your life. Because usually it's a matter of a few months or a few years, usually. I mean, I remember like waking up at the hospital on a birthday that I had, like I, kind of feeling like I was living at the hospital for a few years there as my mother was in her last months and years. So just taking care of yourself in whatever ways are available. To get a break sometimes. I was thinking about Proverbs 31:26, where it says she opens her mouth with wisdom and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. But I was thinking about kind of the sad aspect of that where some will not have it. Like, the people closest to you sometimes reject the wisdom of God that you're speaking to them. And so I would advise women in this stage, like, don't take it personally. Whoever rejects God's wisdom, like, just move on. Colleen, I've heard you say this time and time again. Move on and find some souls that do appreciate your love and guidance, yielding to God's instruction to choose forgiveness and hope. And so refusing to let disappointments poison your spirit like that. You've lived long enough too. The other thing is you've lived long enough to have some regrets now for the poor choices you wish you could change. So it's important, I think, to trust the merciful forgiveness and powerful grace of God, and find joy in the simple pleasures of life that he has remaining for you. Yes, we're all gonna have things that we would like to go and do over again. Do not like cycle through that like constantly. Confess it to God. If you need to make an apology to somebody or several people, do that. If that's part of what you feel needs to happen, if it's that kind of situation. But you need to forgive yourself for not also, living perfectly, or even, you just sometimes you sinned.
Just like you think of the Apostle Paul, he just think what he did. He doesn't spend the rest of the New Testament beating himself up over that. I think he's a great example. I mean, you just do need to move on.
And sometimes you're beating yourself up, and sometimes you're kind of like beating other people up. Like, I cannot believe they rejected the wisdom I was passing to them. So you can't obsess about that either. God says in Hebrews 12:15 that we must see to it that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble. So to increase the likelihood of your longevity and service on the earth, I mean, I think Colleen's right, like that stewarding of our bodies, and even in our old age, we are still not our own. We're still not our own. And so we need to make the sacrifices necessary to glorify God in our body, as well as our soul and spirit.
And let me warn about it. Oh, sorry. Give your reference.
1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20.
And a warning about that. People will say things like, you're just obsessed with not dying. God has said we'll all die, and you're extreme. No. I understand that we're all going to die, but I don't want to die for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
I want to be in pretty good shape. I want to play a game of tennis, and then, and then it's over. I'd prefer that than 30 years of getting worse and worse.
Right.
I mean, that's what happens. I mean, they say that we've extended the life expectancy, but really, we don't really live longer. We just die for a long time.
Oh,
your knee goes, and then your ankle, and then your shoulder. I got to get surgery. So I know that looks bleak, but you can overcome that. And people will, if people don't like change, and you're going to make them feel uncomfortable because they don't run, or they don't work out, or they don't make it a priority, or they don't say, I can't eat that. That icing makes my blood sugar go woo.
Right.
I can't do that anymore. They don't like that, and it'll be hard. There's peer pressure, serious peer pressure, but you can do it.
Yes. And Colleen, even if you die in a car accident after all of that time playing basketball, the thing is, you slept better that night. Your appetite was healthy enough, that you worked up an appetite. So now the healthier foods taste good because you're just so hungry from your workout. There's so many.
Well, and like I said,
earlier,
it's like in that prayer that I have always prayed for my husband and myself to keep, please allow us to grow older in healthy body and sound mind. But Father, help us do our part. Help us recognize what our part is in that process. And if my husband got cancer a couple of years ago, his prostate cancer, and he's fine now. And so that's nothing he brought on himself. That's just something that happened. But if it's up to us, take care of that body so that we can continue to serve. And that's the bottom line, is to still be useful for the kingdom. And I like how Colleen also said, you're not going to sick shame anybody. It happens. Things happen.
Right.
Out of our control.
Right.
But what is in our control, let's make those wise choices, hard choices.
Yeah.
And do what we need to do for ourselves to ensure, that for our part, that, we are ensuring of not burdening others. So,
Yes. And I think all of these ideas that you guys have shared are also useful, not just for the 50s and 60s, but on up for this last stage that we want to talk about, this winter of life. Scripture honors those in their later years of life as people of wisdom, Job 12:12, and honor. And God even commanded his people in the Old Testament, in Leviticus 19:32, you are to rise up in the presence of the elderly, honor the aged, and fear your God. I am the Lord. So whether the present culture gives the elderly the respect due them or not, by this stage in life, women of God rest in the knowledge of how much she is treasured by her first love, by her beloved, as the Song of Solomon refers to our spiritual bridegroom, who cherishes her and helps her. Love Psalms 92:14 that says, they still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, unquote. So, wow, what a motivation to stay faithful. So what are you guys' thoughts about this winter of life? What might women who love God do to make the most of this season of life so they can finish strong? Colleen, what are your thoughts?
I went to see, just a couple of days ago, I went to see the the 70s band Three Dog Night.
Yes.
What does that have to do with our Bible study?
Oh, let's see.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog, right?
Yes. And so only one of them was an original band member.
Oh, yes.
But that guy could belt it out. And the ensemble still sounded like you could have fooled me. I mean, they sounded like Three Dog Night, and they were great. It was it was really fun. But and then the guy that was the original band member, he was poking fun at himself and his age and everything. You know how old that guy was? 82.
Wow.
82.
Yeah.
Wow. So, baby boomers have been this big swell, this huge generation that's gone, and all their lives they've been saying, I know what the older generation was doing, but I don't think we're going to do that. And now they're not retiring.
Yes.
They're like, I kind of like my job. It's easy money now, so I think I'll just stay. So anyway, keep reinventing yourself, and don't just don't stand for that when people say you can't teach Bible class anymore. I mean, unless there's some real problem. I mean, we have to be careful. But if it's just because you're older, don't back off things that you're good at. Those kids need to see older people teaching them as well, and in all many ways to serve. Keep yourself fit. Continue to do that. You can't say, okay, well, I'm gonna play basketball. I'm gonna run till I'm 75, but then I don't think I'll be doing it later. No, you have to be saying, I'm gonna do this till I die, and do the best you can to keep on, and don't ever slack off because you'll lose muscle. So just keep on and do your best. Find new ways to use your skills to glorify God and love your neighbor. I think what Cindy was saying, that you can kind of build on the things that you've been working on all your life, and maybe lo and behold, you're actually getting pretty good at those things you struggled with, like spouting wisdom. You always wanted to do that, and now it's kind of just coming out because you've got all this experience. Or maybe you holding your tongue, listening instead of speaking, or when there's an enemy attacking you, just smiling and saying, well, thank you, I'll look into that. And so I think it is a fun time for us. This program is a great example. Cindy and Isla and others like Robin have contributed so much to this work, and they've done a lot of work to provide this. And it's invaluable to reach the world with the gospel. I have wanted, ever since I became a Christian decades ago, I was waiting for something like this, and it just never was available, especially for women. And now it's like, wow, what a great opportunity. And we just do this work, and we can share our wisdom, and anybody all over the world can hear this, and maybe it can change his or her life.
What a blessing. Yeah, what a privilege to be able to influence the world for good with using technology. So I'm very thankful that, then this couldn't happen without Isla, who tonight is in the background, making it all happen technology wise. So yeah, willing to learn things. I noticed that about Isla's congregation when we visited them. It's like they were so tech savvy, and they were all about teaching Bible classes overseas, like all the streaming and all this and that. And yeah, you could barely tell, up there in the villages, what age people were. So yeah, continuing to develop yourself, keep doing what you're good at. My husband's always asking, like when he gets something repaired or something, he's like, I want the old guy. Put the old guy on, like all this experience. And so, yeah, just keep blessing the world with that. What are your thoughts there, Robin?
Yeah, very, very, very similar. And I do find that in myself, I have much more time, but I have less energy.
Oh,
And that's not a factor of, we eat well. We don't eat out much at all. I try to cook the Mediterranean, way. And we do exercise and all that. So sometimes that just happens as you begin to get older. So I am now very, we talked about boundaries. I don't remember if it was on this program or if it was or the one previous, but I am now guarded of my energy and what I give my energy to, which is something I never experienced because I've always been like the Energizer Bunny, but my energy doesn't go as far as it used to. And again, I think that's just a natural progression as we begin to get older. So just being wise about that, like Colleen, you had mentioned, again, I don't know if it was this program or the part one, or maybe it was just us talking about, you have these things going on in your life that you're putting your hand to, and then somebody has a barbecue or something and you're all busy doing that. But that takes energy. Like, is this really energy I want to give myself to, or is there something more important?
Yes.
In the nature of the king. I'm sorry, I talk with my hands. So I've just noticed that. But, so anyway, I think that's just something that we need to be very cognizant of. And another thing that has really come to me is I feel I'm firmly begun the winter season of my life, and I embrace it fully. But I've realized that I also have more time for prayer.
Oh, yes.
I have chose to minimize distractions. And I have that habit in my life. And so therefore I am trying to serve people more through prayer. And I will tell people all the time, this isn't lip service, but I will be praying for you for whatever, or how can I pray for you? And, in Colossians 4:11, Epaphras, Paul said that Epaphras labors for you earnestly in prayer. So prayer is a service and a work that's behind the scenes. And, I envision a time, if the Lord wants me to stay here till I'm in my 80s and my mind is good, I envision a time where that's how I'm spending a lot of my time, is in service to others through prayer. So that's something. And then also, I think we older people have a responsibility, a huge responsibility, to let those younger than us know, hey, you're doing a great job. Mom,
you're good at that, Robin.
Mom, you're doing great. Nick, thank you so much. You're such an encouragement. Nick is a young man from Oregon, from Cindy's congregation. And just taking the time to seek out and encourage. It can be a text. It can be when you're at church. I would have died for that. I was such a novice at everything Christian, parenting, wifing, everything. And if I could just have somebody come along beside me and say, you're doing a good job. It's okay. Keep, So kind of the idea of passing the torch, but the torch is still in my hand. But I'm kind of putting that torch and lighting their fire a little bit so they can continue. Everybody needs encouragement. Everybody needs that, to be validated that they're important to the church family.
Yes.
I see what you're doing.
Yes.
I think that's huge. So to be the younger set's cheerleader
Yeah.
is huge. And that's
Yes.
something we that are older and wiser, we have the ability to see.
Yes.
We don't need to just see. We need to use our mouth in
Right.
encouraging and lighting, helping their torch become even brighter as ours maybe starts to diminish in a small way.
Yeah.
And then I just, to be completely transparent here, I have found myself being prey to Satan, who is telling me, you're not relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what these 20 and 30-year-olds are, it's a new world. You don't know, you don't know this new technology like they do. And I have allowed his voice to filter in and kind of gone into, oh yeah, I'll just let them. And then I know. And then it didn't take me long, but I'm just saying, he will try to get you at every single age. And my husband and I have said to each other, we don't want to get into heaven feeling like, oh, I made it. This is great. We want to get into heaven like exhausted and
Right.
with sweat and grime and like we're here.
Yes.
Still working so hard for the
Right.
whatever.
I love that, Robin.
Yes.
And so just full transparency, Satan will work on you as you get older and older. And it just happens, and you just still have to say, like Jesus did to Peter, get behind me, Satan. I'm not going to let you take me there. I'm still going to be working for him in some way, shape, or form. So,
like dying on the battlefield, like you're a warrior princess, panting for breath.
That's what we want. We're just going,
yes.
Then it's truly rest.
There you go.
It's truly rest. So.
Well, I love it when a sister's comments, like it almost like we read each other's notes and we had this plan, because I really do think my last thoughts tonight also kind of play in and build on really both of your thoughts tonight, especially those last ones that Robin was saying. But I think Christian women who finish strong refrain from obsessing over what could have been. So that's like the Satan, kind of like Satan working on you, right? Yeah. What could have been, and repeating stories in their minds of if only, and instead accept what is, knowing that God is faithful. And I'm so inspired by Anna, the prophetess, who never left the temple but worshiped night and day, fasting and praying. Luke 2:36 and 37. So let's be like her. Like the goal is to finish strong in Christ, 2 Timothy 4:6 and 7. And the sisters that I've witnessed doing this with the most grace until the end by trusting God with what she could not control, like entrusting him with that. And this season can also be a season to really let go of clutter, empty distractions, and anxieties that can consume our life and rob us of what matters the most. Remember Luke 10:42, only one thing is necessary. So focusing on Christ, which will keep life full of purpose, like full of purpose. If you're focusing on Christ, you got more work than you're going to have time to do. So that will bring that purpose that we need to have to the very end. Mature older women, I think, hold loosely all the things that are temporary and focus more and more on what will last forever, living every day with eternity in view. Colossians 3:2 says, setting her minds, so that we are to set our minds on things above, not on earthly things. Matthew 23:11, there Jesus says, the greatest among you will be your servants. And isn't it just so beautiful to see an aged woman embracing opportunities to volunteer where she feels most needed and lifting up those around her, as you were just mentioning, Robin. Maybe even playing grandma to the littles in your church family. There's a little practical idea. In the winter of life, the older woman should have more time to do what she loves best, which is for many the enjoyment of the relationships that she has planted in the spring and in the summer of her life and has nurtured in the fall. So even though it's much easier to isolate ourselves as physical strength wanes, Christian women who finish strong intentionally invests in her relationships. If Ecclesiastes 4, 9, and 10 says 2 are better than 1. A friend helps in times of need. And this can mean, for the older women, socializing even when they don't feel like getting out, knowing that they'll be glad that they did, for how well those interactions, I think, keep at bay feelings of loneliness or even despair, which is inevitable in keeping invaluable in keeping our spirits up as health declines. So you're not going to feel like it. It's cold outside, and like you get there, and it's like, oh, this is the highlight of my day.
Yes.
After a lifetime of service, she must learn to be at peace with being served, not only for her own good, but so that those who serve her may too be blessed. Mark 9:41. So remember, you guys, at the end of Jacob's life, when he gathered his children together and blessed them, like every one of them, with the blessing that was appropriate to them back in Genesis 49. I think how priceless it would be for a woman in the winter of her life to put in writing, or you can cheat. You can make an audio recording on your phone. But of all the blessings and the blessings on her children and the spiritual guidance that she wants to share with them, Psalms 145:4 speaks to this when it says, quote, "One generation shall commend your works to another," unquote. So you can still be shaped long after you're gone. That influence that you're speaking, that you've written down and that you've spoken into them, not just at the very end, but throughout your whole life, like that's going to continue to shape future generations. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Any concluding thoughts before I wind us down? No? You guys got through all your notes there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to then conclude our conversation with these final thoughts. Throughout life, godly women have taught the world how to live beautifully, and her last act of service will be setting an example of how to die beautifully. 2 Corinthians 4:16-18 says, quote, "Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. We fix our eyes not on what is seen, but is unseen." How inspiring to see a woman in her last months, weeks, and days setting her hope on the eternal crown of righteousness that we read about in 2 Timothy 4:8, and drawing near with confidence in a whole new way to the throne of grace. Hebrews 4:16. So with that, I will say good night, and thank you so much, ladies, for how hard you worked on your thoughts. And I love how we get so many different perspectives, and it all just kind of comes together and creates almost a work of art. So I really feel like this one's going to go out and bless our sisters in Christ. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.